Now in this section, we'll explore commands for file management, including creating an empty file or changing the timestamp of an existing file, copying files, renaming or moving files, deleting files, and finally comparing files and folders, right? So we look at the commands that we'll use. So touch is used to create empty files or change the timestamp of an existing file. CP is used for copying files and folders as well. MV again is used for moving or renaming files and folders. RM is used for removing or deleting files and folders, and diff is used for comparing files. Now diff not only compares files, but it will also tell you what changes have to be made to make the files identical, right? So we'll look at that as well. Now let us start with the first one, which is touch, right? So this will allow us to change the timestamp, that is, it will modify the timestamp of an existing file, or if the file doesn't exist, it will create an empty file. Now timestamp is information associated with file modification, right? When was the last time the file was modified? And it can be any of the following, right? Access time, the last time the file was read, or the modification time, which is the last time the contents of the file was changed, or change time, that is the last time the file's metadata was changed. So it could be the access time, the modification time, or the change time. And if the file does not exist, right, let us say if the file is not there, then it will create an empty file of the same name, right? So let us create an empty file, right, of the name my analysis and with the extension R. So we'll basically create an R script, an empty R script of the name my analysis, right? So let us go to a studio terminal and we'll create using touch. Let me just list the files and folders before that, right? So we have analysis.r, but we don't have my analysis.r file, right? So I'll create my analysis.r, right? And now if you list the files and folders, you can see my analysis.r here, right? It has been created, and if you want to look at the contents, it is empty, right? So cat is something that which will read content from the files and display it in the terminal, right? So if I use that on this one, it is empty, right? So it doesn't print anything. There is no content in the file, so it doesn't print anything. We'll look at cat in more detail in the next section, right? So I just wanted to show you that the file is empty, right? Now let us move to the second command, which is copying files, right? So CP will allow us to copy files and folders, right? So I'll clear the screen again so that we'll start from a clear screen, right? The CP will make copies of files and folders, right? So the general form of the command is CP followed by the source, that is the file or folder being copied, to the destination, right? So if you want to copy the file or folder in the same directory, or do you want to copy it into a different directory, so we can mention that. Now CP will overwrite files without prompting for confirmation by default, right? So by default it will overwrite existing files, right? So be careful when you are copying files and folders. We'll look at options that will allow us to ensure that we are prompted for confirmation before a file is overwritten, or to very specifically indicate that file should not be overwritten, right? So either we can use an option that will prompt for confirmation, or it will ensure that a file is not overwritten, right? So let us start with the cp command now. Okay, and what we'll do is we have this files here, right? So we have the release underscore names.txt, right? So this file basically contains the uh, release names of different R versions, right? So I'll show you that using the cat command again. Right, so some of them are here, some of them are in a different file, which is release underscore names underscore 18 and underscore 19 for those releases which happened in 2018 and 19, and all the release names which are available up to 2017 are there in this file, which is release underscore names dot txt. Right now let us copy this from release underscore names dot text. Right, so I'll clear the screen again. Right, now what we'll do is we'll create a copy of this file, right, which is release underscore names dot txt in the same directory, right, in the same directory which is in bash tutorial. I'll create a copy and I'll give it a separate name, right? So let us say this is the file that I want to copy. Like I said earlier, the command general form of the command is cp followed by the source and destination. That is a file or folder that must be copied, and where do you want to have it copied, whether in the same directory or in different directory, and with what name, right? What should be the name of the file or folder. So here I'll copy release underscore names dot txt, and the name of the copy will be release underscore names underscore 2, right? Instead of saying release underscore names underscore copy, I will make it release underscore names underscore 2. Right, now let us call ls, and you can see this file here. Right, earlier we had just release underscore names dot text. Now we have release underscore names underscore 2 dot text, and if you want to see the content, right, so you can see that using cat function, right? It has the same content as the original file, which is release underscore names dot text. Right, now so far we have copied the file in the same directory, right? We have not copied it into a different directory, right? So now what we'll do is we'll copy this file into a different directory. So we'll copy it into a subdirectory of the present working directory, which is bash tutorial, right? So let us look at the directory structure once, or the files and folders that are here. What I'll do is I'll create a new directory here using mkdir, and I will call it as r underscore releases. Okay, so if you run ls, now you can see that folder here. We just created this. Right, now we'll copy this file, which is release underscore names dot text, into this folder. Right, so we are now copying the file into a different directory, which is basically a subdirectory. Right, so I'll again use cp, then we have release underscore names dot text, which is the file being copied, and since I am copying it into a new directory, I will use the same name. Right, in the previous case we were making a copy in the same directory, so I used a different name. Right, I used underscore 2 to ensure that we have two different files, but here I am copying it into a different directory, which is basically a subdirectory. Right, so I can use the same name. Right, so let us first specify the directory name, which is r underscore releases, and then I'll specify the same name here for the file. right? So I'm basically creating a copy of release underscore names in the r underscore releases directory, right? Now we'll check in the r underscore releases directory if this file has been copied, right? So that now for that we don't have to go into the r underscore releases directory. Instead we'll use ls followed by the name of the directory, right, which is r underscore releases. And here now you'll see this file that was copied, right, release underscore names dot text, right? So now we have seen two different scenarios where in the first one we copied the file in the same directory but gave it a different name, right? Now in the second case we copied that file into a different directory, which is basically a subdirectory, but we retained the name because uh, we were copying it into a different directory, right? Now let us copy a folder, right? So we have seen how to copy a file in the same directory and into a different directory. Now let us see how we can copy an entire folder, right? So we have the R folder here, right? We have this R folder. Let us see if it has anything in it. Yes, it's an empty folder, right? And we also have these other folders, right? So for example, let us see if there is anything in my files, right? So it has a bunch of text files and R scripts, right, and markdown files. Now I want to create a copy of my files, right? I want to copy this folder. I want to copy the entire folder, right? Not just a single file, but the entire folder, and I want to create a copy of this particular folder. So what we'll do is we'll use cp and we specify the folder which is being copied, which is my files, and we'll call it as my files 2, right? So we have my files and then there's a copy which is my files 2. Now here we are not copying a single file, right? So we're copying the entire folder. So we'll have to add an option here, right, and that is -r. Okay, the reason is this fold directory has to be recursively copied. That is, the directory, all the files have to be copied. If there is any subdirectory inside that, that directory and all the files inside that had to be copied. So the R here stands for recursive, or recursively copy the folder, which means it will copy all the files, any subdirectories, and any files inside that subdirectory, and any nested directories which are there, right? So the directories, files, subdirectories, nested directories, everything will be copied, right? So let us run this. Again, I'll run ls again, and here you can see my files 2, right? And if I run ls on this one, I can see that all the files that were inside my files have also been copied, right? So whenever you are trying to copy a folder, use this option -r, right, because then it will recursively copy that folder, the files in that folder, directories, subdirectories, nested directories, all of the contents of that folder will be properly copied into the new folder that we are creating, right? So we learned how to copy a file in the same directory into a new directory, and also how to copy entire folders, right? Now we'll move on into the next topic, which is moving or renaming files. Like I said earlier, the mv command will move and rename files and directories, right? And using additional options, we can ensure that files are not overwritten, or that the user is prompted for confirmation before overwriting files. And also we can display the details of the files being moved, right? So you can see it in the table here also. Using the F option, we can ensure that the user is not prompted for confirmation before overwriting files. That is, files are overwritten by default if you use that option. Using I option, the user will be prompted for an confirmation before overwriting files. The N option will ensure that files are never overwritten, and the V option, which stands for verbose, will move files in verbose mode, right? You will be able to see what file is being moved from which directory, right? So let us start playing around with the MV command. I'll go to the RStudio terminal again, right? And what we'll do is we will move one of the file into a different directory, right? So earlier we created a copy of the release_names.txt file, right? So we have two files here now. One is release_names.txt and release_names_2.txt, right? So this is the original file, and we created a copy of this file here. Now what I'll do is, instead of copying, in which case the original remains, we'll move this file, right? So now I'll move this file, which is release_names_2.txt, to the r_releases directory, right, which we have here, right? It has one file right now, which is the original file that we copied earlier, right? It has release_name.txt. Now the copy that we have created in the current working directory, I will move it into this directory, right? So we'll use mb command, right, followed by the file that needs to be moved, which is release_name_2, and then you specify the directory into which this file needs to be moved, right? And we want to move this file into the r_releases directory, right? So let me run that, right? So we'll run this, right? So since we have moved the file, it should not be present in the current working directory, right? Because we moved that file from bash tutorial to r_releases. So now that file should not be present in the current working directory. Let us run ls to confirm that, right? So we have release_names, right? But this file, which was present earlier, it is not present in the directory now, right? Because we have moved it. And let us confirm that it is present in the r_releases directory, right? We'll run ls, and now you can see this file is present here, right? Earlier it was present in the bash tutorial directory, then we moved it, right? And here earlier r_releases only had one file, which was release_names.txt. Now it has two files, right? release_names_2.txt, right? So we have successfully moved file from one directory to another. Now if you want to view the files which are being moved, then you can use the V option, which is verbose, right? Now what we'll do is we'll create another copy of release_names.txt file, right? So we'll create another copy, and then we'll move it into the r_releases directory. But this time we'll use the V option, which is verbose, and it will display the file that is being moved into this new directory, which is r_releases. So let me create a copy of release_names, right? And this time we'll call it release_names_3.txt, right? And I'll move this file also into the r_release folder, right? I'll move this file also into r_releases, but this time I'll also use this option, which is V, right? So that it will show the file that is being moved into the directory, which is r_releases, right? It says renamed r_releases_3.txt to r_releases/release_names_3.txt, right? although it has moved, it says renamed, but here you can see what has happened, right? The release underscore names underscore 3.txt has now moved into r underscore releases directory, right? And we can confirm this as well, right? If you run ls here, you don't say release underscore names underscore 3, right? You just have release underscore names dot text. And if you look at r underscore releases folder, it has the file that we just moved, which is release underscore names underscore 3 dot text, right? So if you use the v option, you can look at the details of the file that is being moved. Now, how do we ensure that existing files are not overwritten, right? Sometimes while moving, copying or moving, uh, you might by mistake specify a file name that you don't want to be overwritten. You should be careful because you don't want those files to be overwritten, right? So now we'll look at an option that will allow us to ensure that files are not overwritten, right? Or at least the user is prompted for a confirmation before a file is being overwritten, right? So what we'll do is first let us take a look at the content of the file that is present in r underscore releases, right? I'll clear the screen. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to look at the contents present in the release underscore names underscore 2 file in r underscore releases. So again, I'll use the cat function here, and I'm looking at r underscore releases, sorry, and is underscore names underscore 2, right? This is the file I'm looking at, right? It has all these release names of r up to the year 2017, right? Now I'll create another file in the present working directory, right? So this file is present inside the r underscore releases folder or directory, right? This is present here, and in my current working directory, which is bash tutorial, I don't have that file, which is release underscore names underscore 2.txt. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create a new file here with the same name, but the content will be different. It will not have the release names of R versions, but instead I'll just have one single line of content which will be release underscore names. I'm going to use another command here, which is echo, and again I'll come to this command when we reach to the input output section. We'll look at it in more detail, but for the time being you can know that it will print any string or text that you give it to either the terminal or to a file, right? So I'll use it, and I will use this string, which is release underscore names, but I will write it to a file, right? So using this symbol I can write it to a file. So I'll now create this new file, which is release underscore names underscore 2.txt, right? Now we have a file here which is release underscore names underscore 2, right? And the content of this file is just a single line, which is release underscore names, right? So I'll just quickly show you the content of these two files that we are looking at, right? So this is the content of the file which is present in the current working directory, which is bash tutorial, right? And I will also show you the content of the file which is present inside r underscore releases, right? It has all of this content, which is the r release names, right? Now I will move this file, right, which is present in my current working directory bash tutorial, to the r underscore releases directory, right? Both the files name are same, but the content are different. And if I move it and I use the n option to ensure that the file is not overwritten, right? So let us use mv dash n release underscore names underscore 2 dot text, right, and we'll move this file to r underscore releases. Right now, if you had not used the n option, it would have just overwritten the file that is present in r underscore releases. Right now, let us see what has happened. The file which is in r underscore releases should still have the r release names, right? Right, it still has the r release names. The new file which we had created in bash tutorial and just had a single string which was r underscore releases, now that has not been overwritten on this file. So using the n option, you can ensure that existing files are not overwritten. And this is important if you're dealing with a lot of important text files, right, where you don't want to have them overwritten. Now, how about the case where you don't really care if it is overwritten or not, or that is you don't want to be prompted whether or not to overwrite, right? So there are two cases. One is where it will be overwritten and the user will not be prompted for any confirmation. The second is where it will not be overwritten, that is using the n option. The third option is I, which will prompt the user whether the file should be overwritten or not, right? So you have n, which will ensure that the files are not overwritten. You have the I option, which will prompt for confirmation before overwriting files, and then you have the F option, which stands for force, which will forcibly or forcefully overwrite the file present in the destination directory or folder. Now we have explored one option, which is n, which ensured that the file in the destination directory is not overwritten, right? So the file which we have in r underscore releases is not overwritten. Now we look at the other option, which is I, which will you ask the user for confirmation whether the file in the destination directory should be overwritten or not, right? So let us try that. So instead of n, I will use I here, but let us just check if we have release underscore names underscore 2 here. Alright, we still have release underscore names underscore 2 here, right? Let us just check if the content is the single string. Yeah, it is there, right? So now we will move this file, but this time before moving the file, the user will be prompted for confirmation, right? So using the I option, let us run this, right? It asks overwrite r underscore releases slash release underscore names underscore 2 dot text, right? So it is asking us whether the release underscore names underscore 2 dot text in the r underscore releases directory should be overwritten, right? I'll say no. You can either say yes or no, right? So now if you check that file, right, you can still see that it will not be overwritten, right? It still has the r release names, right? It has not been overwritten by that single string which we created in the file present in bash tutorial, right? So in the first previous case, we saw that it was not overwritten. We were not prompted for any confirmation. In this case, we were prompted for confirmation. We said no, right? Now in the last case, it will forcibly overwrite the file and will not be prompted for any confirmation, right? Let us try that. So now we'll run this option, which is F, right? mv-f. Okay, now let us look at the files here. So now you can't see the release underscore names underscore 2 dot text, right? Because it has been moved into r underscore releases and the file which was present there has been overwritten, right? And we can confirm that using cat, right? So now I'll see the output. I'll see the content of release underscore names underscore 2 in R underscore releases, and you can see that the R release names are not there anymore, right? So far in previous two cases, the file was not overwritten and it still had R release names, but now it has gone. All those names are gone. There is just one line of content which is release underscore names, right? So whenever you are moving or renaming files, ensure that you use the right option. Now so far we have just tried to move files, we have not renamed them, right? Now let us take this file which is my files 2, right, and I will rename it as your files. Okay, I'm taking my files 2 directory and I am going to rename it as your files. Okay, and I'm using the mv command. Right, now let us run ls again, and here you can see my files 2 has gone. There's only my files and you have your files here, right? So we created a copy using cp, but when we use mv, right, and it is not into a different directory, right, it is in the same directory, right? In the previous cases when we are dealing with release underscore names underscore 2, we were moving it into r underscore releases directory, which is a subdirectory. But in this case we did not specify a different directory, right? We used mv and then we specified file name, right, which is my files 2, which is an existing folder. Sorry, it was a folder. And then we specify the new name for the folder, right? So then you can see that the name has been changed. My files 2 has become your files, right? So you can use mv for either renaming files or folders, and you can also use it to move files and folders into different directories, and you can use all those options, right? So you can use v to see the details of the files that are being moved. You can use f to forcibly overwrite. You can use I, right, to be prompted for confirmation before overwriting a file, and you can use n option to never overwrite any file in the destination directory, right? So play around with this. Use the mv command and rename some of your files and folders, and also move them into different directories. Play around with the options as well, right, and see what happens, right? Now next we'll move on to the next section within file management, which is removing and deleting files or folders.